everybody. I just wanted to share with you today my personal perspective on ascension or atonement or entering into 5D Earth, fifth density or the fifth dimension. And it's just my perspective. Yours could be completely different, and that's absolutely fine. It doesn't mean mine is right and yours is wrong. Because just like we're all human, we all have our own distinct soul and our own distinct personality. And ascension, atonement, movement into 5D is as unique and individual as the individual is. No two are the same. One's not right, one's not wrong. So my perspective on it is I have been immersed in these spiritual concepts of ascension and moving into 5D since the early 1970s. And we were really considered weird and strange way back then. Many of us thought we were from a different planet because we were interested in and understood things that 95% of the population just, not that they didn't get it, they didn't want to get it. They were like, oh my God, you are so strange. So we learned not to talk to people about this stuff unless they gave us some indication that they might be interested in it, like by wearing a crystal or being in a rock shop or, bringing up the conversation somehow where it opened the door and made it safe to talk about really, at that time, unusual spiritual ideas. And the other thing I think is that you are born into this. You don't become spiritual, they used to call them New Agers, and that was a good term until it became a bad term, and Christians started calling New Agers the devil, demons, and the occult, because they thought of people like Aleister Crowley. So New Age got a bad name, which is okay, because they're not really New Agers. That was just a term used to define people of a spiritual bent who are interested in ascension, atonement, and really the healing of the planet, the healing of Earth, the healing of humanity. Lightworkers is a much nicer name and is a very accurate name as well. So I'm just going to stick with the lightworkers and the lightworking community, because at least we know who we all are, even if some believe, and rightly so, that they're coming from different places and they're not necessarily feeling very human. And others feel that they're extremely human and they've been through a long series of reincarnations to understand what they understand or to get the viewpoints that they currently have. Whatever, the light working community encompasses everybody, including empaths and energy workers and psychics and people who are just wonderful, loving people bringing wonderful, loving energy to the planet. So in the 80s, there was something called the harmonic convergence. I believe it was 1986. And lightworkers from all over the world, but a whole lot of them in the United States, went to, drove to, flew to, walked to, took buses to sacred sites like Chaco Canyon and Mount Shasta, places like that, and Bell Rock, Sedona. And they wanted to be near sacred sites that had high energy on the Earth's ley lines or energy grid, because there was going to be a lining up of the planets in such a way that it was an extremely rare event. And people prepared for this for years. And some people just went to meet other lightworkers, and some people went to experience an event. There were people saying that at that point, there would be an ascension for the light workers, and they would either ascend to a higher state of, they didn't say earth then, we were thinking more like heaven or another dimension. We weren't bringing earth with us, though. The popularity of the 5D earth really came later. And I'll talk a little bit about some of its popularity, what boosted it. And others went to be taken by aliens in UFOs. And the communities that believed there would be an event and an ascension on the 3 days of the harmonic convergence in sacred sites really grew over years preparing for it, as did the group saying that there was going to be a mass exodus off Earth because Earth is too negative, Earth is run by the negatives, so they would be taken off in spaceships and brought to a better place, a more loving, kind, light place to live. So really, we're talking how many decades ago? We're talking 40, 50 years ago. People were all ready to get off of this planet because of the negative political systems, the negative media, the negative medicine practices. They really were ready to escape the negativity of the human-created organizational systems on Earth. Because the Earth itself is not a negative place. It's a big, beautiful place to live. It's just the systems that humans have put in place are very oppressive. My mother and I actually bussed and rented a car and drove from Chicago to Chaco Canyon, but we never quite made it to Chaco Canyon because we found a beautiful private mini Grand Canyon called Angel's Peak, somewhere around Albuquerque. And that's where we spent the harmonic convergence along with a father and a daughter. And it was a very spiritual experience for us because it was like we were communing with nature and with each other. And in this beautiful setting, we didn't know what to expect. We didn't know if aliens were going to come down and get us. We didn't know if we were going to ascend off the planet. And we also didn't expect either to occur. We went with open hearts and open minds that whatever happened, happened. And if nothing happened at all, we would just embrace the experience as an opportunity to commune with nature and with each other, kind of like a group worldwide prayer meditation occurring all at the same time. My brother went to Chaco Canyon and my sister and her family went to Mount Shasta. So there were a lot of people moving around, and just the fact that people were moving to be somewhere special to commune and meditate together for ascension is an amazing thing that this got pulled off, that it actually happened. And it's a good thing we didn't go to Chaco Canyon because people couldn't get into it. Now, if you've been there, Chaco Canyon is a huge national park with very ancient Indian ruins, and it's a very large space, and it was full. It was so full of people that they closed it off and said no more may enter. So that's kind of giving you an idea of the perspective of how many people got up and went somewhere as part of this. They were planning it for at least 5 years. I remember working it out myself for 2 or 3 years in advance, where I would be, get the time off work, save up some money, etc. The event did occur. We were all there. We all went where we were supposed to be and did what we were supposed to do. But then we came home. And I was fine about it. My mom was fine about it. And most of us were fine with that. Most of us felt a sense of satisfaction just for participating in it, though none of us reported spacecraft coming down to take people. None of us reported friends ascending off the planet. Basically, it was a non-event from the outside world, which gave a lot of people who didn't participate an opportunity to make fun of it and say, look at those wackos traveling all over with their sage and their incense and their drums, and nothing happened. But you see, something did happen. The events that we're experiencing are not always visible to the eye, to the 3D eye. The events that we are experiencing are often energetic, and they're happening to our energetic bodies. So most of the people came back and went, okay, I'm ready for, the next camping trip, and I'm going to continue on with my own spiritual development and my spiritual growth. But a lot of people came back and said, that's it. I'm done with it. I'm washing my hands of this forever. Nothing happened. I really, 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 really believed that the aliens were going to come and get me and take me off this terrible place where all this negativity controls people. And they left spirituality. I don't know for how long. I knew quite a few who remained hopeful and loving and didn't mind that an event did not physically occur for the whole world to see. And I knew quite a few who washed their hands of anything spiritual from then on because their disappointment was just too great. So the reason I'm bringing up this story is because I was very young during the harmonic convergence, so it taught me a big lesson, and I was actually okay with it. I really enjoyed the experience. When we brought our photographs back, a lot of the photographs had like metal orbs shining from the sun all around people and cars and places during the harmonic convergence. You can't see them necessarily with the naked eye. And yet when you take a photograph, it can actually pick up because there's something going on with the light and the reflection on the orb, which makes it visible to the camera and the film, but not necessarily to the human eye. So my contention was plenty went on. There was a real shift for the people who participated. And those who left and said nothing happened, well, maybe they weren't feeling that shift. Maybe they couldn't experience a subtle event, an event that occurs on the subtle plane, in the etheric realm with your etheric body, in the astral realm with your astral body. Our energy is so vast and so much more than this physical body that these events very well could be taking place and probably are taking place in that realm, that where our bodies are etheric and our bodies are astral. So that taught me a good lesson, not to expect always to see things with my physical eyes, but rather to sense them and to feel them with my heart or with my sense of knowing, which comes from my higher self or my sense of intuition. So not many events occurred until the year 2000. And again, there was this big year 2K, year 2YK thing where a lot of fear was spread that everything would break down. All the computer systems would crash in the year 2000. There would be no electricity. There'd be no heat. There'd be no food. There'd be no clean water to drink. I didn't believe it, so I didn't prepare for it because I just felt it was wrong. I didn't resonate with it as a truth. And that woke up a lot of people, that mass fear also does not have to occur as a physical event that everybody can see. And then there was the Mayan calendar ending in December 2012, and a lot of people expected a devastating end of the world, and some expected to ascend, that would be the great event. Some very famous authors got caught out on that one, saying, this is it. This is when it's happening, folks. Get ready. Get your spiritual suitcase packed, because in the year 2012, those of us who are ready are going to ascend and leave this planet, and those of us who aren't are going to stay, and the planet's going to end. And of course that didn't happen. Or did it? A lot of people say that the Mandela Effect started around 2012. I actually can trace it back much further than that. But, they say it started to really pick up around 2012, and maybe the planet died. The Higgs boson particle was discovered in December and January of 2013 in CERN. And there was the potential, be it small, that in the process of discovering the God particle, they would create a mini black hole on the Earth. And the scientists thought, well, if that happens, it happens. It's still worth the risk. Let's go find the God particle. And this is all nonsense, because the God particle is supposedly one of the very, 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 very first particles that came out of the Big Bang. And they're trying to create mini Big Bangs. That's what they're doing at CERN and these other accelerator particle accelerator labs. I mean, I lived near one, grew up near one. Fermi Lab in Illinois was one of the first atom smashers underground. Anyway, they're trying to create mini Big Bangs and things like that, and there is some theoretical danger to it. But okay, so maybe the world ended and now we all woke up in a different place. Because life continues, there is no end to life. You live forever. You are eternal, whether you're here or whether you're somewhere else. That certainly gets rid of a lot of fear. So I guess my point is, a lot of people expected an event around this past year's solar eclipse, and then again around the September 23rd alignment of particular planets. They expected an event then. And people are talking about the event in March, particularly around the spring equinox. And I just wanted to say that I do know some energy healers who make their living through energy healing. And both of them are saying that they know that the planet is being bombarded with particularly high energies this March, this spring equinox. We are bombarded constantly with different energies. We went through helium clouds in January, and scientists were going, I wonder what that's going to do, because we don't recall going through helium clouds before as a planet, as a solar system. And I've read and heard reports of the increased gamma radiation that we're currently experiencing, which could be causing expanded consciousness and the Mandela Effect. And Jupiter and Venus are very, very bright, much more luminous, according to the University of Wisconsin, brighter than ever before. So they're going through some physical changes as well. And if you believe it, our magnetic shield is scattered, has been scattering for about 40 years now, and there are a lot of holes in it now. So we are receiving, as humans, a lot more energy from the solar system than would normally be blocked out by a very strong magnetic shield. And the idea of an event goes back to biblical times when you read about the apocalypse. And, you interpret that as the end of the world. Whereas the apocalypse, the word itself means to uncover the unknown. So it's more like changing the world from a very kind of unaware world that doesn't really know what's going on into a more aware world. That's the way I would interpret that. The end of one age in order to herald in the beginning of a new age. But new age has got a bad word. So we'll say the end of one era to herald in the beginning of a new era or epoch. And in the 1970s, there was the whole series of the Law of One, Book of Ra series was written in the mid 70s to early 80s. And I read all of those books, and they were not extremely popular back then. They are more so now. I think ever since David Wilcock started quoting from the Law of One books, that really popularized them and made them more popular now. And in a nutshell, they basically, through channeling this entity called Ra, they received information that the world would split from 3D to 4D. They said from third density to fourth density. And that the way the split would occur, very much like the biblical harvesting, where it's described that one will be taken while in their sleep, while the other sleeps right beside them, will be left behind, and separating the wheat from the chaff. It's also very biblical as well and ancient. And the way that Law of One and Ra described it was roughly, this is in a nutshell, go read all the books if you want to know. Half of the people are living in service to self, which is considered negative, and third density living, 3D, third dimension. Really, if you look at the Hermetic laws, the earth is more balanced than that. The earth is not 100% negative. It's polarized. It has negative and positive, plus and minus, high and low, hot and cold, male and female. I can go on forever. It's a dualistic world. 3 dimensions is dualistic and it lives with polarities. And then the other half of the people would be living in service to others, and they would be positive polarity or positively charged. And for their wonderful positive attributes and services to humanity, they would be rewarded by being taken up into fourth density or 4D. Now, my favorite books on this subject came from Dolores Cannon. I've read about 6 of her books about this subject, and she hypnotized thousands and thousands of people and reached what she called the subconscious, which many would refer to as a super consciousness, because it was the same shared consciousness in every single person. So basically she was reaching the collective consciousness of humanity in every single person when she brought them deep enough into hypnosis where she could talk about the future, and the future for humanity and the future for the earth. And what was interesting was that they had very, very similar descriptions of what that future would be. So she popularized the notion that we would be leaving 3D Earth and going into 5D, the 5th dimension. And one of the reasons that they skipped the 4th dimension in Dolores Cannon's scenario, I believe, is because since the 70s and we were going from 3D to 4D with the Law of One books, science pretty much agreed that the 4th dimension is time, that there are 4 dimensions here right now. We have the 3D of the physical aspects of matter, so we're not just living on a plane or a 2-dimensional world. We're in 3D, so we have matter in 3D, and the 4th dimension around all of this matter is time. I don't know, that sounds good to me. It doesn't have to be the 4th dimension. It could be a separate thing, but it's kind of an interesting theory, a way to look at things. See, when scientists say this is this and that is that, I never believe them. It could be that, or it might be something else. They might be calling it that, but then I could call the same thing this, so these theories are like water. They come and they go, and they wave and they peak, and then something else comes and replaces them later. They're never truly facts that we hold on to forever. So the 4th dimension was considered time, so she bumped everybody up from 3D to 5D. And again, the people who would get to go to 5D or live in 5D Earth would be those in service to others, the light workers, the people who were loving, kind, empathetic, compassionate, while the people who had to stay behind in 3D would be the negatives, the people living in service to themselves, the greedy, the oppressive, the really, if you look at our government system and our media system and the censorship and the lies, I guess those are the people that would basically be left behind. In a way, both scenarios are really based on polarity still, and they're operating on karma or a reward and punishment system, because the baddies have to stay behind and live in the systems they created, while the goodies get to move on and move into a more loving, light, sharing, and compassionate world. But karma itself is not a reward system, and karma itself is not truly a punishment system. And you'll learn more about that in A Course in Miracles and by studying some of the very ancient pre-Buddhist religions like the Bon religions or philosophies, some of the Chinese philosophies that say cause and effect. If you do this, this might happen, or this might happen, or that might happen. But it doesn't mean that if you do this, you will be rewarded, or if you do this, you will be punished. It's just cause and effect. For instance, if you help a lot of people out in your family and in your community, it's more than likely that during a time of great need, when you ask for help, somebody's going to step in and help you because you were so helpful. That is not a reward. That's not something that you deserve or you're being saved from in these particular philosophies and religions. It is a likely occurrence as an effect from what you did previously, which was the cause. So it's kind of removing the emotions from the cause and the effect. And yes, I think they're beautiful philosophies in the Law of One. The writer of the books was not the channeler, and he did commit suicide, so you need to know that and keep that in mind. That after writing the channeled works from the channeler, he couldn't find peace in living in this world and took his own life. I think that's important to know, but that doesn't take away from the fact that the books themselves and the channeled information is very, very interesting and very relevant to today. I know I look forward to a golden age on earth. We had that in the Bible, and we had that from the King Arthur tales. And we're always predicting that after the darkness of a very dark society on earth, we will then all get to experience this lovely, wonderful, beautiful golden age. And that's carried on in the spiritual works and texts of Dolores Cannon and the Law of One, and others as well. And I think that is a wonderful thing to look forward to and help to achieve and bring into the now, but not at the expense of the now. Because all of these events that we're talking about, they're usually spiritual, they're usually energy events, they're usually things that happen around us and to us, but they don't usually happen in physical 3D matter for the whole world to see. So in March, we might be flooded with amazing high frequencies and energies that light workers are going to be particularly susceptible to, and it could change their DNA, could change their energies. But it doesn't mean that the whole world is going to see an event take place. It means the event was a spiritual one, and it was an energetic one. It doesn't make it any less important that the event might not happen in physical 3D, that the event might actually be an energetic one. The only thing that would be bad is if a bunch of young people who weren't around for the harmonic convergence and the year 2000 event and the year 2012 event, if they're fairly new to this and they don't see a big event occur, they could be disappointed and say, I don't believe in this stuff anymore. It just didn't happen. And those of us who have been around doing this for decades and decades, we don't expect major events to occur in physical matter. We expect subtle events to occur in the energetic fields around the matter. I guess the other danger of wishing and praying and hoping to be sucked off this planet into a fifth dimensional, loving, light, wonderful, peaceful version of Earth is that we can start to neglect the 3D world around us. We're here in 3D now. That means 3D is still important, and we shouldn't allow censorship to overrun everything, because it doesn't matter. I'm going to 5D soon, so why would I get involved in fighting censorship? Or we shouldn't allow our government to take away all of our freedoms and completely oppress us as individuals, because it doesn't really matter, because I'm going up to 5D soon. So why would I worry about what our government's doing and what our president's doing and what the censorship that's going on right now? That's one of the other dangers I see, is that everybody waiting for 5D is not even looking at 3D anymore, not giving it their care and their concern and their love and their attention. And when our president announces that it's okay for our government to torture suspected terrorists, what if those terrorists are falsely accused? What if the people they're talking about torturing and making it legal are people who criticize the government? We are not a country that condones torture. And we really should not be stepping back into the dark ages now in 3D and start condoning torture. And a lot of light workers are looking up to the stars and saying, I'm almost there. I'm going to 5D, so I'm not even going to look at 3D anymore. And there is a grave danger that we neglect the 3D world that we were born into. We weren't just born here so that we could leave the 3D world. We were born here to heal the 3D world. We weren't born here just so we could leave planet Earth. We were born here to heal planet Earth. And that needs our attention now too. Because there's every chance that ascension and atonement and leaving 3D and going into 5D is a long, slow process. It might not happen instantly. It might not happen overnight. It might not happen all at once. It might be a gradual process of incorporating fifth dimensional living into your current body, into your current mind, into your current emotions, so that you can bring 5D here. And when enough people do that, here becomes fifth dimensional living. In the meantime, for the sake of our children and our grandchildren, let's not neglect the needs of a three-dimensional world, of this earth that we were born onto. And it doesn't need a lot of censorship, and it doesn't need torturing our suspected enemies. We need to keep an eye on what's happening here while we look to the heavens and to the stars to move this planet into a more peaceful existence. Did anybody ever think that perhaps moving into fifth dimensional Earth does not mean leaving 3D, but it means bringing 5D Earth here onto the planet through your own body, through your own mind, your heart, and your soul? The process of ascension might be inward, and it might be drawing to you the very light and love that you are hoping to go to, but drawing it into you and bringing it here. Okay, those are just some thoughts. They're my thoughts on the many, many, many events that have been foretold during my lifetime, at least. Okay, much love, everybody. Peace.